There's this study that really blew my mind where researchers asked, I think, more than 19,000 people across every age how much they changed in the last 10 years and how much they anticipate to change in the next 10 years. And across every age, everyone said, I changed so much in the last 10 years and I feel like I'm pretty much done changing now. I'm probably not going to change that much more in the next 10 years. And they checked in with everyone after 10 years, and the 28-year-old one that said he's definitely done changing was a completely different 38-year-old one, and the same with the 55 one and the 67 one and so on. That people just changed so much more than they thought they would. And I feel like it's one of the most important reminders of how wildly we underestimate how much we're able to change, and also how much we will change whether we want it or not. So for example, neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change, happens whether you want it to or not. So it's gonna take place, and we are just gonna be super different versions of ourselves that we are now in a few years. And the thing I find so fascinating is that so often we don't act like that at all. We are more kind of in this observer role, like spectators of our own lives so often, that we just take our job, our career path, our apartment, the city we live in, the relationships we have, our friendships, we kind of take that as fixed, and that's just how it is. And so often not even really questioning it or not realizing how much is in our power to change our circumstances, but really living in a way as if things happen to us and there's not that much we can do about it. And I feel like it shows up especially also with postponing big decisions or staying very much in places and circumstances that feel super familiar, avoiding risks. And also, I think one thing that's so typical for all of us to do is to say one day. So we watch people on Instagram and YouTube and wherever. We watch them change their lives completely, travel the world, quit their jobs, building their dream house, preparing for a marathon. And we say, one day I'm going to do the same. One day, which is like the most vague thing we can possibly say. But it makes you feel good in the moment, right? Because it's like this intention of one day I'm going to do this. But we're just so much in this waiting stage, right? We're like, one day, but not now. And I've been asking myself so much lately, why is that? Why are we like that? Why don't we realize how much more is in our control and how much we're inevitably going to change? And why are we not taking more agency and more control? And why are we these spectators of our own lives instead of being the main character who makes decisions and choices and actively shapes their lives? And from a neurological perspective, there are two main reasons. The first, which I already kind of touched on and also talked a little bit about in previous episodes, is this tendency of the brain to love everything that is familiar, whether it's good or bad for us. It doesn't matter. But as long as it's familiar and we know it, the brain loves it, because predictability is one of the nicest things for the brain, because it just requires much less effort, right? Much less brain capacity, because it can kind of always foresee what's going to happen and it wants to keep us safe, right? So familiarity is the best possible scenario. And that's also why when we make big changes, even if it's maybe for our own good and it's better, it might still feel horrible in the moment. And you might still be like, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? This feels so horrible. I want to go back to how my life used to be, even if it was horrible, right? And that's a super fascinating thing, I think, first of all, just to know, but then also to work with. But then the second thing is this very big and very common fear of what if I don't find anything better, right? What if I quit my apartment now because I hate it here and I want to move into a different city, but then what if I won't find an apartment there, or I'll find a worse apartment and I will hate it? Same thing with a job, same thing with a partner. Just this overall fear of what if this is the best I can get and I won't find anything that's better for me. And the wild thing about this is that the fear of not finding better is actually so much worse than not finding anything better ever could be, because living in this fear and kind of this mindset of I won't find anything better keeps us so stuck and makes us believe that we cannot change, right? That we cannot do anything about this. And most of all, it makes us settle for things that are maybe not the way we want them to be, maybe not how we envision our lives, and making us stay so safe and so small and just not living our fullest potential at all. Because what happens is that we don't just upgrade our lives, but we also forget that we can. We forget that we have the ability and that we will also, like I said, inevitably we will change. And so that's why then one day we wake up and we're like 55, 65, and we look at our life that is not something we've actively chosen, but we kind of ended up in. And I think that's just the thought of that is kind of like a very scary thing and a very scary awakening, and just a huge reminder that we are changing, and it's so up to us what version of ourselves we become and what our life looks like. Because again, neuroplasticity happens whether we want it or not. Changes happen whether we want it or not. And that's why in today's episode, I want to explore with you what we can actively do to get into that main character energy, to become the full creators of what our lives will look like, to really get into this agency mode. And this is especially for anyone who's listening who feels like they are so stuck in their life and there's not really much they can do, and they feel so kind of limited by their circumstances. And I want to acknowledge at this point that, of course, there is always maybe some situation or scenario where it's maybe not possible to quit everything and move to the other side of the world because you have certain obligations and responsibilities. But I promise you, no matter what your life looks like right now, there is so much that is within your control and that you can change. But I think the first thing it comes down to is to want to change and to acknowledge that, yes, familiarity feels good, but to also try and practice to let go of that and acknowledge that, yes, change always feels scary. It always does. And new things and being in new situations, it is uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar. But the most important thing I learned, especially also experiencing it so many times when, for example, moving to a new place or starting something new, is that it might feel maybe like the wrong thing in the beginning, even though you wanted to do it, but then you question yourself crazy much. But then it will get better. It's really just kind of this short period where you feel like, oh my God, what did I do? And you so much want to go back, but that will pass. It will pass. And I think the problem is also that everyone who's doing something new or trying something will experience that. And the problem is, as always, that we don't really see it that much, right? Because those people who built their dream house on a farm and so on, they for sure have these moments where they're just like, what the fuck? What am I doing here? When something maybe goes wrong or not according to plan, or again, where it just feels unfamiliar, right? And crazy. And they do experience that as well, but we just don't get to see it because it's a highlight reel with everything, right? So keeping that in mind, I think, is the very first step. The next thing that I've set as a really big intention for myself, because I know it's something that's also been holding myself back so much in the past, is to stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel ready, because you never will. There's never the right time. There's never enough preparation you can do to feel eventually ready. You never will. The only time you will feel ready is when you actually start and realize that there is no such thing as feeling ready. The second thing that's such a huge one for me is to stop waiting for permission. I think I've had this so crazy much in the past that I felt like I needed someone from the outside to kind of allow me to do what I wanted to do or really approve of it. I think approval is such a big one, right? That we're so dependent on other people confirming to us that, yes, it's totally the right thing to do. And if you then don't have that, you won't do it. And I think that's really one of the most stupid scenarios, because no one should be responsible for you to make decisions in your own life. And you should not kind of outsource that responsibility, because no one is as invested in your life as you are, right? Not even your parents, who probably love you the most in this world, not even they are as invested in you living the life you want and feeling your best, because everyone is just so in their own life, of course, right? And has their own problems and their own thoughts. And that's also why I think sometimes it's super dangerous to outsource this decision or this approval, because then we get opinions from people who are not living our lives, who are maybe projecting their fears or their experiences onto us. And that just sucks, right? Because you don't want to be held back just because someone says, I wouldn't do it, because maybe they would love to do it, but they can't do it, or because they had a bad experience with it or whatever. I think it's so crucial to let go of that outside approval, or to rely on someone from the outside also to push you to try something. It really needs to come from within, to also, I think, learn that you are the one who is in control and you can make decisions for yourself, and to find that trust in yourself also. I think especially for that, it's crucial to learn to make decisions by yourself, is one of, I think, the best ways to build trust in yourself and learn that you can rely on yourself. And another huge thing that definitely plays into this so much as well is the social norms we grew up with and that are just stuck in our mind, right? About how to do certain things. And I think I quickly want to give you one example, which I find so fascinating, is that I'm originally from Munich, Germany. And I grew up there. I lived there until I think I was 21, 22. And I still have also a lot of friends there. And every time I'm in Munich, I really love it. I think it's one of the most beautiful cities. And it's, of course, so nice to see my friends and my family. But every time it also reminds me of how there are just so certain ways of doing things and how you kind of should live your life. It's so fascinating that I feel like, of course, it again depends so much in which surroundings you are, and I think also in which bubble you live in. But especially I think in the bubble that I'm in with my friend group, I feel like there's just this very certain way of what your life should look like at your early 30s, for example. Like the area you most likely live in Munich, and the apartment style, and the places you go to, the restaurants, the clothes you wear, the brands you find cool, the places you go to for vacation. It's just somehow so set in stone. And I feel like I'm definitely exaggerating it a little bit now as well. It's maybe not as dramatic as I'm describing it, but that's just how it feels like to me, that it's this certain way of how your life looks. And I think this is such a huge one. No matter where you live, there are 1,000% some sort of norms and unwritten rules of how it should look like, oftentimes also instilled through our parents, that we feel like this is how it has to be. And if we then do something different, it feels wrong just because it's different. I think instead of seeking that approval and permission from the outside, we need to work on giving it to ourselves by really telling ourselves, you are allowed to move. You're allowed to change your job, to completely change your career. You're allowed to change your mind. That was also a really crazy one for me, that I felt like if I say I like something or I don't like something, I need to stick with that. And that's just how it is. But no, you are so allowed to change your opinions, to change whatever you want, because it is your life. And anyone who tries to make you feel bad about that, or that you're doing something wrong, or questions it, should not get even an ounce of your energy or your attention, because all that does is just make you feel bad. And I think something that's really interesting is how much we admire people who do their own thing and who don't conform with everything, or especially like who don't care about what others think, how they do things, right? It's definitely true for me that I have so much admiration and always feel like I wish this was me when I see someone just completely unapologetically do what they want to do and not care if people think it's cool or not, if it's cringy or not, and just do it because they think it's the right thing to do and they have a certain plan and kind of just know that what they're doing is true to themselves. And I think that's just so cool to not apologize. And yeah, I really want to integrate this so much more into my own life as well. I wrote down one more thing to stop waiting for, and this is the most important one because it's to stop waiting for your life to begin. I have this so much, and I catch myself so often in this thought that will feel happy when, or life will be perfect when, or really just that my life will begin, or I will feel complete, or whatever, once this and this has happened. And it will change everything. And that is when it will start. And I read this quote once about how we somehow expect that there is this big moment, this kind of huge turn of events where we feel like, okay, now it starts, now it begins. And this is the biggest illusion ever, because that moment doesn't exist, because life has already begun long ago, right? We're right in the middle of it. And we do these things that are so stupid that we, for example, save the nice dress for the perfect occasion when we feel like now it deserves to be worn, or just in general, saving things. And there's this one thing Brianna Weiss said that I really, really loved about how when you store something in a safe for later, you might open the safe and find ashes because it's not going to be worth anything anymore. Because we also put value to things in the moment, right? And it's in the moment where it matters. And that's where we should also use it and treat it as if now is the exact right time. And right now my life is happening, and we won't feel happier when we've achieved something or lost 5 kilograms or had that huge milestone or huge success. It's just really, unfortunately, an illusion. It's an illusion of that's when I will feel complete, or when everything is great, and it won't. And I think we need to trust that moment will never come, so that we can find it in the present time, and that we can focus on, first of all, of course, focusing on everything we already have and all the abundance that is already there, but also to realize that we need to make the most of it right here, right now, because we don't know if we still have the option in a few days or years. We simply don't know. And yeah, that's something also, actually, one of my favorite quotes is, the thing you will regret most in life is to not reaching harder for something while it was right in front of you. I really think there is nothing worse than regret, right? When you could have done something, but you've postponed it because, again, you didn't feel ready. You felt like you first need approval, and it wasn't the perfect time yet. And then the possibility is just not there anymore. How much does that suck, right? And this is what I want you to remind yourself of every single time that you come up with an excuse for not doing the thing, or not taking a big decision, or not daring something that you really want to do but you're too afraid of. To remind yourself that now is the time. There will never be a better time. And there's another saying, oh my God, I feel like I'm only talking about quotes right now, but about how the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. And that we will always be so happy we did something now. And even if it doesn't work out, it will still, long term, in my opinion, have a huge positive effect, because there's always something positive coming from things, even if they don't work out. Let's say you quit your job and you move to a new city. Like, these are also, of course, very very big, drastic examples. And that's not what this is about here, right? It's not about that you have to turn your whole life upside down, but I think it's really about even the smallest things, where we're sometimes so stuck in it, and where just changing something really small can already make such a big difference. But let's come back to, we say we change our job, we move to a new city, and then just assuming now that we do not find a better job, we will actually then end up in a job that we hate, or we thought maybe we start our own business and it fails and we hate the new city that we're in. We can, first of all, always go back. There's always a way back. And even if it's not to the exact same scenario or to exactly where you were before, that's probably also a good thing, because you also wanted to leave that, right? But there's always a way back. And the experience from that alone that you made to also find out what it is that you don't like is so invaluable. And that was also, I think, one of the best advices I ever got when I felt really stuck and really unsure about what I want to do in life. That someone said to me that you will never find it out if you don't try. You need to just try as much as possible to really see what you don't like. Knowing what you don't like is so valuable, because we need that to then eventually get to a place where we know what we do actually like, right? And that we don't get stuck in something that we don't like. And coming back to the point that it doesn't have to be this huge, crazy change that you need to make, I think it's really good to remind yourself to start small with anything. Also, that's, I think, such a good advice when you want to start, for example, a new habit, or try something, to do the smallest possible version of it, so that you just get started, because the start is always the most difficult, right? Because once we do get started, we actually are much more prone to take the next step and continue and so on. But overcoming the fear of beginning and also the fear of being bad at something is so important. So with everything in your life, I think it's really powerful to audit it. So making kind of an audit of different things in our life, like how you spend your weekends, your style, your apartment, your friend group, your job. It can be these big things, but then also the smaller things. And with every single thing, like making a list, and then with every single thing asking yourself, how set in stone is this? Like, how fixed is this? And there are certain things that are maybe a bit more fixed. Like, for example, let's say you have kids, then I feel like those are probably very, very fixed. But a partner, for example, is not as fixed as children, right? Or, a specific routine you have, or a certain friendship is not that fixed. It can always be changed. And just, I think, getting awareness over how many things there are actually in your life that are not set in stone is super helpful, because again, I think that's something that just reminds you so much about how much is in your own control and how much you're able to change, and how you're not the victim of your circumstances, but you are the creator. Really getting out of this victim mode. I think I said this before many times, but this was the biggest life change for me, to stop acting like things happen to me and acknowledging that I have so much more control and it's so much more up to me. And that's, of course, super uncomfortable, right? Because taking over responsibility is really scary, because it just then also means that if you then don't do anything about it, it's also your own fault. And I think we hate admitting that things are our own fault, right? Where it's so much easier to say, well, I couldn't do anything about it. That's just how it was. Like, it's my parents' fault. It's the fault of how I grew up, or it's my boss's fault, or whatever, right? That's so much easier. And putting that responsibility away from us makes us feel temporarily, I think, better on the inside, but long term is, I think, the worst thing we actually can do to ourselves, because realizing how amazing it is that we have so much control and power and responsibility, like, how amazing is that? Because it really means that you can do whatever you want, to a certain degree. Again, depends on the things that are like really, really fixed, that you maybe cannot do something about it. But within that realm, within that realm of things that we have control over, we want to act on it as much as we can. I want to share one last thing that I find really powerful, and I'm actively trying to integrate it into my life every day. And it's to speak yourself into existence, the version of yourself that you want to become. And first of all, of course, that requires to be super clear about who you want to be and the kind of person you want to be. And then actively talking yourself into that by, I think, especially mentally, it helps me so much by telling yourself, I'm the kind of person who. So, for example, for me, I'm the kind of person who prioritizes movement every single day. Or I'm the kind of person who does things even when they get uncomfortable. I tell myself that when I'm literally lying in bed, feeling like shit maybe, or just feeling I really don't want to do anything today and I just can't. I try to remind myself and actively talk to myself in my mind. But hey, I'm the kind of person who does things even when I don't feel like it. So I'm going to get up now. And I feel like this self-talk is a gazillion times more powerful than any affirmations or anyone else saying it to you. Or I really can't think of anything that works as well for me and that is as powerful. And it's also something James Clear writes about in Atomic Habits, right? About how identity is the most powerful way to establish habits, to let go of bad habits, to bring new ones, like make new ones really consistent and stick to them, by defining what kind of person you are and acting upon it by really being so clear. I'm the kind of person who. So I hope this inspires you to maybe make a little list for yourself where you're really clear on what kind of person are you and how does that person act. Overall realizing that you have control because it's up to you and no one else. You have to fully become now the absolute main character of your life. We're done with watching from the outside as if everything is already predetermined and we're just following along. No more. We're actively creating. We're so much more powerful than we know, and we can change things also so much faster than we know. And yeah, I really, really hope you enjoyed this episode and it inspired you. And I cannot wait to see you next week. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I'll see you soon.